First of all, though, let's talk about Coronation Street, because the broadcasting regulator Ofcom is assessing claims that the programme breached rules on product placement. On last Monday's episode on ITV, viewers will have seen Roy's Rolls owner, Roy Cropper, telling waitress Fizz Brown he was trying to book tickets to see Midnight Tango, a real-life theatre show starring Strictly Come Dancing star Flavia Cacace.
I am sorry. Mother should be serving. I don't know where she's gone to.
Don't worry, it's only a couple of coffees and some cakes. I'm all right helping myself. Who are you on the phone to, anyway?
At the moment, what sounds like a Latin American dance band.
Oh!
Trying to procure tickets for the theatre show, Midnight Tango. I've been on hold for some time.
I never knew you were a fan of Strictly.
Well, I'm not. And to me, it's an exhausting blur of legs and feathers, but to my wife, poetry in motion.
Oh, Roy, she'll be made up. That is so romantic.
Well, Flavia Cacace's fiancé, Jimmy Mystery, is about to join the soap. And she was about to start a 5-day run of the stage show in Manchester last week when it was mentioned on the programme. Tickets were still available when that broadcast was made. The former Strictly star tweeted, "Thank you, ITV Corrie, for our mention. Can't believe it, but thank you." Her fiancé, Jimmy Mystery, tweeted, "Roy is class. LOL. Brilliant." Product placement is allowed in soap operas, but Ofcom requires a P to be displayed in the bottom corner of the screen so that viewers are aware it's taking place. No such notice was given on Coronation Street. ITV say that the mention and the fact that the stage show stars someone connected with the soap are purely coincidental, and that the script was written before Jimmy Mystery was signed up. Let's talk to Lou Ellerton, who is a consultant at the branding agency The Value Engineers, and first Martin Campbell, who's a former Chief Adviser to Ofcom. Hello, Mr. Campbell.
Hi.
So the rules then, we've just explained them there. If they're not followed, what sanctions are available to Ofcom?
Well, the maximum they could be fined is either £250,000 or 5% of their qualifying revenue, which of course is all the advertising costs, which would be considerably more. But it's unlikely to go that far, I would have thought.
Why?
Well, simply because I see this as problematic, but whether it's the worst thing that they could have done, a maximum fine for this would run into millions. And it may be that Ofcom will use it as a test case. I mean, that is possible because the product placement rules have only been in for a couple of years. And the detail is quite complicated. The principle is simple, and that is that you can include a product or a reference to a product in return for payment, but it must be clear that payment has been made, which is what the little double P is on the screen. And clearly, as you said, that wasn't present here.
But it doesn't sound like there was any contract for payment.
No, it doesn't, in which case what they will need to do is to justify it editorially. And as I say, I've watched it and heard it again there, and there were, of course, two mentions. What might make a defence difficult with this is that there are always a problem with soaps appearing to be real and doing real things and using real products and so on. But usually, no one ever watches TV on soaps. You don't get a Coronation Street character talking about what was on EastEnders, or even mentioning other programs, or indeed celebrities. I mean, that never seems to happen in soaps. So this is really unusual because not only was Midnight Tango plugged, but also Strictly, which is a BBC program. So, it's very unusual. So there will have to be a pretty good editorial justification for this because there are lots of coincidences here.
Well, you've heard the statement that claims mitigation, written long before Jimmy Mystery was approached about joining Coronation Street, recorded long before he agreed to join us. Any suggestion of a link between the two is ludicrous, and that episode, like all others, went through a rigorous compliance procedure, and there was no issue.
Well, I'm a broadcast advisor, and if they had run that past me, I would have said no. This is certainly problematic, and I don't think you can defend it by saying that it's a ludicrous suggestion, simply because of all the coincidences.
Yes. Lou Ellerton, how much would a theatre production, let's say they had paid for that kind of mention? How much would that cost?
Well, I think it depends entirely on the show itself. Now, Coronation Street was one of the first ITV shows to use product placement. In fact, you may recall that they have a nationwide branded cash machine in Dev's shop. Now, we know that for 4 months, ITV was given their sum in the low six figures for that. But I think in this case, we're talking about two fairly brief mentions, even though they have, of course, caused this storm of negativity. It's likely to be more in the low five figures, or even for some kind of unpaid consideration. For example, tickets to the stage show, or even some, a favour to a friend, as it were. And I think that in a sense is the difficulty, that it's quite hard to envisage why the programme went out on a limb in this way.
Do you agree? It is a heck of a coincidence.
It certainly. I think the fact that there were complaints so swiftly and that it's been picked up by the media shows just how much people are loath to believe that it is simply a coincidence. And as Martin said, the fact that we don't see current events, we don't really hear celebrities or other TV programmes mentioned in soaps, strange as that may sometimes seem, it does lend itself to the bigger question of why this was chosen, why this particular show, and why at this particular time. And whilst it may be a coincidence, it's certainly an odd one.
And as Martin said, it rarely happens that writers, producers use real life references to what's on telly, what's on at the cinema, etc., etc.
Yes, even at times when perhaps the rest of us are wondering why they don't mention it. And, I think whilst I think there is always a question mark for scriptwriters about, how can they make something feel current? And in this case, the perhaps did fit the storyline and the characters that they used to introduce it. But still, it's difficult to see why they couldn't have chosen a different show, or even a fictional show.
Also, it may well be that it was recorded a long time ago. Sorry, as they put it, written a long time ago and recorded a long time ago. But again, what a coincidence. It went out on the programme just as the theatre dance show was about to start a 5-night run in Manchester.
Yes.
Extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And in fact, perhaps one of the questions that comes to mind is, if one wanted simply to choose a dance show that would characters and would fit the narrative arc, then why did they not choose something that would be more prominent in people's minds, that would be instant? Because the fact is that most people probably won't have heard of Midnight Tango with the best will in the world. It was only relevant to a fairly small part of their audience, and unfortunately, a lot of that audience will have been in Manchester.
Martin Campbell, why does it matter? Is it about transparency most of all?
Yes, absolutely. It's entirely about transparency. The product placement detailed rules, as I say, are a little bit quirky, because when the PP is on the screen, it's on at the beginning of the program, so people know that they're going to be sold to effectively during the program. But it is confusing for the viewers, because the PP doesn't appear when the actual product is being placed. I
see.
Because obviously that would certainly be intrusive to suddenly have an enormous arrow saying paid for. So it creates a bit of a game of spot the product placed. I mean, I've tried it with Coronation Street before to try and work out which product is being placed, and I've never done it.
Has there ever been have Ofcom ever, or a branding agency like yours, Lou, ever done a survey to see if anybody knows what PP actually means when they see it on a screen?
I think we haven't conducted a survey ourselves, but certainly the industry, I believe, feels that people do understand what it means. But as Martin said, I think the level of awareness of particular products, or indeed the amount that people care about seeing a product, is really quite low. Although, having said that, we do know that when Nespresso placed an espresso machine quite prominently in This Morning in the programme there, a subsequent survey that the Nespresso brand ran did find that people had considerably more interest in purchasing it, having seen it there.
Sure. Thank you both very much. Very interesting. Martin Campbell, a former Chief Adviser to Ofcom, and Lou Ellerton, a consultant at a branding agency.